are in this section of your green part of your book, the oxyacetylene, and this is the identifying of the parts that you're going to find in the tank system. We're going to go through that together, and once we have that, then we're going into the steps. So the things that I give you on here would be how you'd want to list them on the test, because I'll give you a preview. Here is the pre-test. The pre-test is yellow. The actual test is green. You're going to have multiple choice and fill in the blanks. Hey, look at that. This is what you have there, right? No surprises, okay? And then you're also going to have the list of how to set everything up, which is what we're going to also go through today. So nothing on here is meant to mess with you. I want you to do well on it. So when we go through the identifying of this equipment, the way we list it today would be the way you would need to list it again on the test, and that would be the way you'd want to refer to it anytime you're talking about that equipment while you're in here. Forgot to show you in there, I realized that as soon as we started walking in here, if you remind me, either at the end of the hour today or tomorrow at the beginning, I'll show you the picture of the equipment that my dad has. I had ironically took pictures of it for a different class, for some whole different other reason, but it ties into a guy that came to me second hour in welding, showed me some pictures of some equipment he found this weekend at his grandpa's, and looked a lot like the one I had. So it's kind of cool to see that he's identifying things that are good and bad about the equipment that he found, and that's what I want you to be able to do also. All right, so number one, that is your oxygen cylinder or tank. Either one of those you can refer to as, it doesn't hurt my feelings, whatever you would prefer to call it, go ahead and call it that. So oxygen cylinder or tank, you'll hear me refer to it as either one. Okay. Number two, if we were to follow that hose around, and we'd find that it connects to the acetylene, so that's your acetylene torch valve. If you're not quite sure how to spell acetylene, just remove the oxy part from above your sheet there, and that'll help you spell that out. I don't really care about the spelling part, but so acetylene torch valve. Now, if on the test you just called it a torch valve, that would be incorrect. There is an acetylene and an oxygen. There is also different valves that we're going to talk about, so we have to be pretty specific about it. Number three is your welding tip. Some of the things that I'm going to refer to will be back from the video you watched on Friday. Different size welding tips, lower the number, the cooler the flame that you can achieve from it. We can take those welding tips off. We can replace it with a cutting torch. That's something that we'll also be looking at during this training. So in this case, we would have a welding tip. Number four is your oxygen torch valve. They are set up that way, not just because of the way the hoses are set up, but if you hold the torch this way, your acetylene is on the top and your oxygen is on the bottom. Number five is the oxygen hose. And a little side note, make sure you label that it's green. Okay, this is again a review from Friday. Everything on our equipment is color-coded to easily identify what it's for. All oxygen parts are green, even the internal colors of the gauges are. Number six, acetylene hose. And that is red. Acetylene hose. Number seven is your acetylene cylinder or tank. Acetylene is always going to be shorter than the oxygen tank. Again, very easily identified. If they were both the same height and they didn't use colors, it'd be easy to start confusing things. Also, a review would be that there are left-handed threads and right-handed threads. So even if you tried to hook up an acetylene part to an oxygen, it wouldn't allow you to. So again, trying to keep you safe since you're using the gases, which make it very dangerous. Number 8, number 9, number 10. These are the ones that people typically misidentify in the test. Everything else, pretty easy. Then they get up to 8, 9, and 10, and then the wheels fall off the bed. Number 8 are the regulators. Remember, the regulator has two jobs. One is to reduce the high cylinder pressure and then to maintain an even flow. So the regulators, you have one on any tank that you find. Okay, you're going to have MIG welders, they have a tank of gas, they're going to have a regulator. A TIG welder has a gas, it's going to have a regulator. The settings on them are going to be different. Today we'll look at the settings just for oxyacetylene. Number 9, this one is your working pressure gauge. The working pressure gauge. It's always going to be on your left. So if you look at those gauges, you know the working pressure is always on your left. Number 10 is the cylinder or tank pressure gauge. Cylinder or tank pressure gauge. When we crack open a bottle, it's going to read on the right side how much gas is in that tank. It's like your fuel gauge in your car. On the left side, your working pressure, how much is actually coming out of the torch. Okay, and that pressure varies depending on if you're welding or if you're cutting. Number 11, oxygen cylinder valve or oxygen tank valve. As you notice, most things are the same depending on if you're talking oxygen or acetylene, so you really only have to remember half of it. You just have to remember which side is which until you get up to the regulator part and you've got your working pressure and your cylinder pressure. All right, let's go ahead and go through the procedures. Now in your notes, I broke it into 3 chunks. Setting that up, lighting the torch, taking it back down again. You'll notice there's 15 spots, right, or 14 spots. These numbers don't necessarily need to be that many. It could be a few less, it could be a few more. So in your test, I did not break it down into chunks. I just gave you 14 numbers. The reason I didn't break it into chunks is because let's say in your startup phase, you combine 2 things. Okay, you're still in order, but you combine 2 things. You may look down and go, I still have a number left. I must be forgetting something, or I must have did something wrong. So I didn't want to do that to you, okay? We just need to be able to take it from step 1 through 14 and have everything in there. Okay? And as long as you have it in order, that's all that matters. Now, one of the things that a lot of people will do to get themselves prepped for their performance test when they actually come up to the tanks and go through and light it up is they will use those notes and they will talk themselves through it. So they'll say, okay, first I'm going to, and they talk themselves through it. And they'll even do that on the actual test. You know, they like to just kind of talking themselves through it, and it just seems to help. Okay, so next week, when we're in here working on the toolbox, I'm going to have this thing parked off to the side somewhere. During that time, you can go over there by yourself if you'd like. Take your notes with you. See if you can, walk yourself through the steps. If you want to use a couple people to just kind of help each other out and just practice. The only thing I won't allow you to do is light the torch, but you can do everything else. Okay? Once you've done that enough times, you feel confident that you can walk up without the help of your notes and take me through all these steps we're going to go through, then that's when you would say, I'm ready to do my performance test. And that can be done at any time. Okay? I will have a cutoff date where you'll need to have that test finished by, but you'll have plenty of time to prepare for that. So remember, some of the things you needed in order to start welding would be your open book test, which you all have finished. You need to pass this test coming up on Friday, 100%. You need to get your performance test done where you go through this and in your lab feed. So this next week or 2, we're going to cover basically everything, get you all ready to go. If you make a mistake during your performance testing, I will give you the option to find your mistake. I won't tell you what it is, but I will just say you're not there, and then you got to back up and go, okay, what did I do wrong? Okay, and if you can catch it and fix it, then you'll still pass your test. Okay, if you just don't find it, then I'll tell you what you did wrong, and then you'll retake and do it again. Any questions on the performance testing phase? So here you're writing it out, and here you're performing it. Now again, comments come back to me saying, how about you just have me show you, and I don't have to go through all this work of writing it out. Wouldn't that be a little bit better? Because I don't do well with the whole writing and remembering. And here's the deal, I have to have physical proof in the form of a test that you and I have gone through this safety training and that you've completed it successfully. That's why on this particular test it has to be 100%. File that away for the semester. If anything happens, we can go back in the test and say, you showed me everything was in order and you know, you just made a mistake that day. Okay? It isn't like you could come back and say, hey, I never knew. He never told me I wasn't supposed to do it that way. So yes, you have to have a written portion of it. And that's probably the hardest part for some of you. It's going through and actually remembering all that. But I'm going to do my best to help you through that. All right, enough jibber jabber. Let's get to the first step. Open a settling cylinder valve a quarter turn. The way that I list this to you would be the bare minimum. Okay, I have condensed this down to as simple as I can possibly make it for you. So, open a settling cylinder valve or tank valve a quarter turn. Now it's going to seem sort of slow as we go through this. You're like, wow, this takes a long time to set this thing up. When we're done with the notes and we go back over and do it again, you'll see that it's very quick actually. You know, you can do this entire setup in less than a minute. Just got to get through the notes so I can explain things for you. So as we do this, I will start doing things like you would be doing for your performance test. So if I'm doing my performance test right now, I open my acetylene a quarter turn. Now, I did notice that I do have a problem here. It's probably because we were doing demos. We should only get a reading on our cylinder side. We should not get a working pressure yet. So, all right, that's step one. Step two, open the acetylene torch valve a quarter turn. Open acetylene torch valve, quarter turn. If you think that the labeling part is just so I can grade you on something, I hope you understand why you need to know the parts. If you're listing what you're going to do, but you don't know what the part is, we have a problem, right? So we're going to open the acetylene torch valve quarter turn. Now notice how when I open that torch valve, nothing's coming out. Okay? My regulator right now has gas going into it, just doesn't have gas going out yet. I haven't said anything yet. So it's telling me how much pressure is in my tank, and that's it. So you don't have to worry about, well, what if you open this up? Well, later it'll be a problem. Right now, no problem. All right, step three. Adjust the regulator to a working pressure of 5. Adjust the regulator to a working pressure of 5. Comma. We're going to kind of combine a step here. Close torch valve. So adjust regulator to a working pressure of 5. Close torch valve. So our working pressure is 5. So now we know what we're dealing with the number here. We're going to screw that regulator screw in. And it's going to then allow pressure through the regulator and give us a reading on the opposite side. What you're looking at inside the regulator, I kind of tore this one apart. And I don't have all the parts out here, but the main ones. There's a diaphragm, there's a spring. That screw presses down on the spring, and depending on the pressure you put on that diaphragm, you either get more or less pressure out the other side. Okay, so it's a pretty basic setup. So let's go ahead and adjust that so that we get up to 5. You can hear the gas coming out, right? So that's why we have to make sure we close that torch valve. in your written instructions, if you tell me to set this to a working pressure of 5 and you fail to tell me to close the torch valve, then that wouldn't pass, because the whole time you have gas flowing out of this thing. Okay? So now we have our working pressure set for our acetylene. Now we're going to kind of repeat the process, but there are little tweaks. So now, what number are we on? Number 4. Slowly open oxygen cylinder valve. Slowly open oxygen cylinder valve. Then open all the way. So slowly open oxygen cylinder valve, then open all the way. And I'll explain why we had to write it down that way. So if we walk up in front of this, and I just crack this open real fast, there is a ton of pressure in here. Okay, if you remember from Friday's notes, there's 2,000 to 2,600 psi in a tank that's full. If you crack this open too fast, sometimes you could have a malfunction of your regulator, which would cause it to blow apart, and you'd be standing right in front of it. Okay, so not only do you want to crack that open slowly, but you kind of want to be off to the side when you do it too. Okay, so if I'm using the tanks, I don't stand right here and do it. I might just do one of these, just kind of stand off to the side. I'm just going to slowly crack that open. Once it's open, then you can go fast. That's why I had you write it that way, because it takes quite a few turns to get this thing open all the way. Double-seated valve, we have to make sure it's all the way open or all the way closed, because otherwise in between there's no seal. And actually third hour when I did this, you could hear it hissing in between, okay, which it really shouldn't do that, but it's not sealed at that point. So it does have to go all the way closed or open. Acetylene valves work different than that. Any questions on that? Okay, so you don't have to crack it open slow and then do this, because you'll be standing here for quite a while. Okay. All right. Now you can go ahead with the next step, number 5. Open your oxygen torch valve a quarter turn. Open oxygen torch valve a quarter turn. Adjust regulator, this would be number 6 now. Adjust regulator to a working pressure of 5 and close torch valve. So you're basically repeating the same step that we did for acetylene. So the nice thing is, once you know what parts you're dealing with, if you know how to do one, then you pretty much know how to do the other one. With the exception of how far you open, quarter turn on acetylene, completely on this oxygen. Now I'm going to give you a scenario that happens. It happens every semester I teach this class. So they're stepping up to do their, practicing or whatever. They're getting ready for the performance test. And it always amazes me, some of the things people do wrong. I don't pick on them. Okay, we have to start somewhere. So I'll see this one where they are ready to adjust their working pressure, and instead of tightening in the regulator screw, they back it off. Okay? And they're backing it off, and they're looking in here, and nothing's happening, and they're like, okay, nothing's happening, okay, and then they do that, and then they freak out because they feel like they just pulled a pin on a grenade, right? They're like, oh my gosh, nothing's going to happen. Okay, just letting you know, if you were to do that, nothing's going to happen, so don't freak out. But here's what you could do wrong. Okay, now you've probably realized that you went the wrong way the whole time, right? Please do not be the person to put this back in and start screwing it back in again. Leave that to me, all right? The reason for that, and I'll let you guess on this. These are $120 a piece. How have people ruined them? Cross-thread. Okay, brass is really soft. They put this thing in here, and a lot of times they're trying to do it quick because they're embarrassed. They don't want anyone to see that they screwed up, so they shove this thing in here and start cranking on it, and they start cross-threading it. So now they not only do they rip the threads up on the screw, but they ripped the threads off inside here. It's shot. Nothing we can do about it, okay? Now I can't buy parts for it, that is what it is. So now I have to take that regulator off, buy a new one and put on there. We've had a really good track record the last few years. You know, we haven't had that problem because people are smarter than that now. They just bring me the piece and then I put it back in there. If I'm the one that screws it up, then I'll eat the $120, okay? Just don't be that person. Just bring it to me. We'll deal with it. It's not a big deal if you pull it out like that, but it is a bigger deal if you strip the threads. And if you've never, done something like this before, you may not even realize you're doing it. Okay, you're just cranking on this thing, and the whole time you're just ruining it. So just leave it alone. But if you did go the wrong way, you can see nothing bad's going to happen. I do have to reset my setting though. But you don't have to worry about anything blowing up, or you're okay. All right, so at this point, you've now set your regulators. Your working pressures are set. When we start talking later on about cutting, okay, later this week we will take off the welding tip and we'll put the cutting torch on here, okay? The settings are going to look drastically different at that point. So we want to make sure you understand what settings do you use for welding and what settings do you use for cutting and so on. 5 and 5, nice and easy to remember. You don't have to worry about, okay, which one is which. They're both the same. All right, so now we can go ahead and light the torch. So now we're at step 7. Open acetylene torch valve quarter turn. Now you might be saying to yourself, we already open the acetylene torch valve quarter turn and we close it and we open up again. Seems kind of repetitive. So let's back up a bit. I want you to think a little bit. Why, when we are setting the working pressure, must we open the torch valve? Well, why can't we just set it without even opening? Why can't I just set the regulator screw to 5 and call it a day? Why do I need to go through opening the torch valve first and then... What's that? Okay, if I don't open the torch valve, then I can set 5 on here, but nothing's coming out. So I've built up 5 pounds of pressure, but when you crack it open, you're going to lose some of that, right? Some of that pressure now is going to be escaping, and so you want to build it back up to what it's supposed to be. So if you look at this right now, it's closed. I'm sitting at like almost 7 pounds. Okay, so that I would have lost 2 pounds of pressure. If I would have just set this to 5 and not have this valve open, when I open it for real, it'd be like at 3. Okay, and then I'd be back there fighting with this, trying to figure out why I'm having troubles. So it does seem a bit repetitive. Open quarter turn, close, but you have to do that in order to get the right pressure. All right, so let's go ahead and take us through the next step then. So once you have that opened at number 7, then you are going to, maybe I should double check. I think I combined one here. Yeah, in step number 7, also put in light with striker. So 7 is open acetylene a quarter turn, torch valve quarter turn, and then light with striker. If you have never used one of these before, when you come over to do your performance testing, you should grab it and you should see if you can actually make spark with it. And you would think that's a no-brainer. It is not. Okay, I've watched many people sit here trying to make spark with this and they can't do it. And last year, for example, I don't know if they ever really got it. I think they got it enough where they could do it, but it was just this clumsy, like they just could not do it. And it was like, okay, and let me help you with that. And I'm searching my head like, you push the thing across. I mean, I don't know what else I can tell you, right? I mean, it's not that complicated of a device, but they really struggle with it. Part of it, I think, was the nerves. They were scared because they knew if they made a spark, then this thing was going to start up, right? And so I think they were like, just really apprehensive about it. But so practice this. Make sure you're actually making spark with this before we do your performance test and you're not sitting there kind of freaking out about it. Get comfortable with it. All right, number 8. Adjust until black smoke disappears. Adjust until black smoke disappears. So I can fire this part up, I just can't do the last phase, because you need goggles on to look at that. And when I say adjust, we're adjusting the acetylene still, we're not in oxygen. The black smoke is not truly going to disappear. We're getting a lot of it out of there. I'll show you what it's supposed to look like, okay? Because it's really hard to explain in a written form like what we're looking for. But we'll get through this and then we'll take a look at that. And then number 9, slowly open oxygen torch valve for a neutral flame. So slowly open oxygen torch valve for a neutral flame. Neutral flame is what we're trying to achieve when we are setting up for welding. You cannot see a neutral flame without goggles. So I'm going to show you this now, and then when we get the goggles out tomorrow, we'll take a look at that. So up on top, this is a neutral flame. It's got 2 distinct parts. It's going to have an inner cone and then this envelope. That inner cone is going to be very bright, very distinct, very crisp. Okay, it's going to be about that long. That's what you're looking for. When you first open the oxygen, okay, we do it slowly because if you do it fast, you snuff out the acetylene, okay, and it blows the flame out. And you got to shut both valves off, and you got to relight the acetylene, you got to start all over again. So if you go slow, typically it won't blow it out. Then what you're going to see at first is 3 distinct parts. You're going to see the cone, you're going to see the envelope, but then you're going to see this acetylene feather, that middle one. That one's going to be a brighter blue, but not as bright as the cone. And we're going to keep adding oxygen until we see that feather just shrink down into nothing. Okay? As soon as it shrinks down and all we see is that inner cone, then we know we have the right setting. Again, you'll see that when we have our goggles on. There's no way for me to show you that right now. If you were to go past, okay, let's say you get that feather to the cone and then you keep going with the oxygen. The cone's not going to change shape. Okay? It may actually curl a little bit, but you're not going to notice it. But here's what you're going to see. You're going to go in there and start running puddles and doing welds, and when you're finished, you're going to have all these little pinholes in your weld. It's going to look sloppy, and you're going to look at someone else's and you're going to go, why does theirs look smooth and clean and mine's all pitted? It's probably because you got to a neutral flame and you cracked open more oxygen than you needed. It's called an oxidizing flame, and that's what's causing those little pinholes in your weld. So if you notice that, the next time you set your torch up, just double check that you're not going too far. If you're still continuing to have that problem, that's when you have evidence. Then you come to me and you say, what the heck? I keep getting holes in my welds, and I'm pretty sure that I have everything set right. Then that's my cue. I walk back there with you, I set the torch up, I run it. If I'm having problems also, then we have to investigate. What else is going on? Do we have a bad welding tip? Is there something going on with your torch? Or is your regulator messed up? I mean, we'll have to do some digging. But what's nice about a class like this is you're going to have physical proof of how things are going, so we can easily identify, hopefully, your issues that you have. All right, so you've welded for a while. Now it's time to take everything back down again. So now we're at step 10. Close acetylene torch valve first, then oxygen. Close acetylene torch valve first, then oxygen. Have you noticed a theme? Acetylene first, then oxygen. Acetylene first, then oxygen. There's a reason for that. Okay? Acetylene's your fuel. Oxygen creates the heat. When we're getting ready to extinguish this, if I turn off the oxygen first, I still have fuel burning. Okay? And when I close my acetylene valve, I may still have a little flame at the end. Okay? Especially if I maybe have a small leak in a valve or something like that. But if we flip-flop that, if we turn our fuel off first and then our oxygen, as soon as the fuel's been turned off, the oxygen blows out the rest of it. Okay? There is a little flame, it'll blow it out. Little note on that part, okay, for number 10. You may hear a pop or a snap when you do this. Now, if I don't tell you this or warn you about it, you may think you've done something wrong at that point. You didn't do anything wrong, okay? That snapping sound is the rest of that fuel being burnt up. It just snaps and then it's gone, and it happens really fast. So don't freak out about that. Now you may hear popping and snapping in other ways, and tomorrow and Wednesday I'll share with you if you're welding and you hear it popping. Okay, what's going on then? You know, sometimes it sounds like a machine gun. You're like, whoa, like you look over, and what's going on over there? Okay, those things can happen too. All right, so now you've turned off your flame, everything's shut down. Step 11. Close both tank valves. Close both tank valves. Notice how I didn't distinguish between acetylene and oxygen because we do not have to. We just need to get them closed. Now let me run a scenario past you. You came up to do your performance test and you set your working pressure on the oxygen tank first and then you set it on the acetylene tank. Do you fail the test? No. No. Okay, you don't. Because that didn't cause any harm. So you're like, okay, wait a minute. Now you said acetylene first and then oxygen. Here's why I always tell you this. Because when you get to this part, then it does matter. Okay? If I don't keep you in a consistent pattern, do you see how people start screwing this part up? Right? If you always just think A first, then oxygen, you're always going to do it right. Okay? So if you turn off acetylene first, and then you turn off oxygen, go for it. Okay, if that makes you feel better, you're type A person, you just want to work that way, go for it. Okay? You don't have to though. Okay, at this point you can just turn those valves off and you're in good shape. Okay? Step 12. Open both torch valves to release the pressure. You can hear the gases coming out. Regulators go down to zeros. So step 12, open both torch valves to release the pressure. Comma. Close torch valves. Okay, so you're opening them and you're closing them in the same step. Just letting the pressures be released. Step 14. Back off regulator screws. Oh, you're on. I thought there was 15 steps. Okay, number 13. Back off regulator screws. Back off regulator screws. This takes the tension off the spring, releases the tension inside the regulator, and keeps it healthy. Okay? Doesn't wear it out as fast. Now, how do you know if you backed them out far enough? Okay, you know when you're going in